Amanda Wilson, 32, returns to her parents' lakeside home for the annual family reunion and reconnects with her sister Jessica, brother-in-law Marcus, and their children. Over the weekend, Amanda notices odd behavior, whispered conversations, Jessica's tiredness, Marcus's unusual interest in Amanda's banking habits, and a staged lemonade spill. Back home Monday, Amanda discovers her life savings and credit lines have been emptied by transfers and cash advances executed during the reunion. Shocked, Amanda returns to confront the family. Evidence shows Jessica and Marcus stole more than $100,000 using Amanda's phone and credentials. Family loyalty fractures as some defend the couple, others are ashamed. Amanda gathers proof, involves the bank and police, and forces accountability. Marcus is arrested and sentenced. Jessica cooperates and begins reparations. Over time, Amanda recovers part of her money, rebuilds boundaries, and the family reshapes itself around honesty and consequences. 2. Narrative structure. Beginning, conflict, climax, end. Beginning, setup and tone warm. Nostalgic opening at the lakeside reunion establishes Amanda's family bonds, traditions, and the emotional stakes, her dream home savings. Character introductions are clear. Caring parents, complex sister Jessica, controlling Marcus, playful kids. Conflict. Inciting incident escalation. Amanda notices a pattern of suspicious behavior. The inciting incident is the lemonade spill and subtle intrusions around Amanda's belongings. The major revealed conflict erupts when Amanda discovers the drained accounts Monday. Personal, financial, and moral betrayal. Climax. Confrontation consequence. The family confrontation is the emotional peak. Accusations, denials, parental enabling, and Marcus justification. Amanda chooses accountability over quiet forgiveness and files reports. Police arrive. Marcus is arrested. Jessica confesses and cooperates. This is both legal and relational climax, exposing lies and forcing choices. End. Resolution and aftermath. Legal outcomes. Plea deal, sentence, restitution, partial recovery. Family restructuring. Jessica's attempts at amends. Amanda's emotional recovery and new boundaries. The ending is sober but hopeful. Truth and integrity over unearned loyalty. 3. Emotional hooks and impactful moments. The lakeside nostalgia invites empathy and contrast with later betrayal. The lemonade spill and subtle invasions of privacy, small domestic details that later become evidentiary. The bank app reveal, cold, clinical way the betrayal is quantified, balances, transactions, visceral panic. The family confrontation where loyalty collides with justice, high emotional stakes. The police arrival, dramatic, satisfying payoff. The quieter aftermath, Jessica's partial restitution, family therapy, and Amanda's measured recovery, emotional maturity and consequence. 4. Elements that make the story viral or relatable. Universal theme. Family betrayal versus loyalty, something many fear or have experienced in smaller ways. Everyday details, mobile banking, lemonade spill, family reunions, high relatability. Twist on trust, someone's safe, sister, as perpetrator, a darker, shareable twist. Clear moral choices. Viewers pick sides, sparks debate and comments. Cinematic moments, docs, fire pits, family photos, easy to visualize in a reel/short. Practical utility, shows how to spot/handle fraud. Actionable tips could be threaded into captions for engagement. 5. Weak points, cliches, repetition, lack of depth, length and repetition. Many scenes and beats are repeated, softball, dinners, fire pit, without escalating new information each time. Exposition density. A heavy portion of the script lists events rather than dramatizing them, e.g., family backstory and legal outcomes are told, not shown. Parent motivations. Mom and dad wobble between protectiveness and enabling, but lack clear internal rationale. Their complicity feels convenient rather than fully explored. Jessica's arc compressed. Her psychological complexity, shame, control, manipulation, is hinted but not deeply interrogated. Her redemption arc risks feeling tidy. Emotional bluntness. Some dialogue explains feelings rather than letting actions/silences convey them. We were going to pay you back, stated plainly. Pacing. The denouement resolves many large issues quickly. Plea, restitution, selling lake house. which reduces dramatic tension in aftermath. 6. Suggestions for improvement: tone, structure, character work. Tighten structure. Compress repetitive reunion beats. Use 2 to 3 vivid scenes that escalate suspicion, one social, one intimate, one isolating, rather than many similar moments. Show, don't tell. Dramatize the bank discovery with sensory detail, cold screen glow, the clatter of the phone, ambient office noises, to increase immediacy. Deepen Jessica's interior. Show her being gaslit, flashbacks of Marcus's manipulations, small power plays, so she's both culpable and sympathetic. Clarify parents' rationale. Reveal 1 or 2 past incidents that explain why parents enabled, e.g., secret mortgage refinancing, emotional blackmail. This avoids them feeling cartoonishly protective. Raise stakes incrementally. Make Amanda's choices harder. Offer tempting cover-up options from family that test her moral resolve. Use evidence as tension device. Amanda's investigation, social media, hidden loan apps, should be a mini detective arc, heightening agency. End with ambiguity. Instead of neat closure, leave trust as a work in progress. Show real friction in later scenes to feel honest. 7. Ideal target audience: primary. Adults 25 to 45 who enjoy emotional, domestic dramas and true crime-adjacent stories, particularly those who value moral dilemmas. Secondary. Viewers of short-form reels and YouTube life stories. Audiences interested in personal finance, fraud prevention, and family/relationship content. Styling note. Performs well on platforms favoring emotionally charged short videos, Instagram Reels, TikTok, YouTube Shorts/true story channels. Include prompts for comments to spark debate. Per your instruction, I will now rewrite the script into a cinematic, 6-section short story. Each section will be 500 words and stay true to the emotional core while delivering fresher narrative choices, tighter pacing, stronger characterization, and cinematic detail. The lake took Amanda's breath the minute she rounded the last bend. Mirror still water pocketed by pine. A cedar porch warm with late afternoon light, the scent of lemon pie and humidity braided into the air. She parked with the engine still ticking and let the silence of childhood fill her. 2 familiar heartbeats, the clap of her father's boots on the steps and her mother's laugh spilling into the yard. And for a second, she could be 16 again. Bare feet, a sunburned nose, Jessica daring her to jump off the dock. But the reunion had a new rhythm this year. Cars with GPS voices, toddlers with tablets, grown faces that had learned to keep secrets. Jessica met her at the doorway with a hug that lasted almost too long, white wine cooling in her hand. There were dark crescents under her eyes, and when she laughed it sounded like a practiced parole. Marcus hovered nearby like a shadow with a tailored suit, too clean, an alertness around him that read less like belonging and more like ownership. Presentation went long. Amanda lied by way of apology. She shouldered her bag. The condo downtown glinted in her mind like a future promise. Hard work, slow saving, eventual keys. She loved this family with the blunt, unquestioning love young people give to people who made them. She loved Jessica most of all. Same laugh, same stubborn jaw. Though lately their lives had taken different tracks. Amanda's phone buzzed. A calendar ping. Monday, quarterfinals, rent reminder. She tucked it into her pocket and let the reunion swallow her. That evening, the yard became a collage, grill smoke. A softball game that saw her slide like she used to, the kids' wooden blocks exploding into towers and ruin. Marcus kept checking his phone, then watching Amanda check hers. He was there and not there, a presence measuring the room. Once, after she'd shown him a snapshot of a listing, he said, offhand, "You must keep your banking tidy. So easy to lose track with mobile." It sounded like advice. It felt like reconnaissance. At dusk, the family drifted to the dock. Dad told a ghost story that made the little ones squeal. Someone nudged the guitar. Someone else opened a bottle with a scrape of metal teeth. Amanda leaned back against the warm wood, the lake reflecting the sky like a promise. Marcus joined her with 2 stiff glasses. "Whiskey?" he asked. He handed her one. Close enough to touch. He smiled at her in a way she read as approval. She watched him. He watched her. Jessica appeared, fingers sticky from lemonade, and spilled the drink across Amanda's blouse with a flustered, "Oh my God, Becky, are you okay?" Her voice trembled, more from haste than guilt. "Go change," she said, too quick, as if policing the moment. Amanda laughed it off and trudged upstairs to the spare room, where the wallpaper had been her sister's once. Her phone sat on the bedside table. She left it face up, half expecting a congratulatory text about her promotion. Inside the house, conversations braided, old stories, softer apologies, the summer's minor victories. Amanda floated between them, tasting the warmth, storing it like coin. She slept that night in a bed press stamped with memory and, for the first time in years, dreamed about moving the couch into the new condo living room. The dream was small, sensible. It felt like the next chapter. She did not know that a ripple in this placid lake would arrive as a number on a screen 2 days later, that a casual question about banking, a spill of lemonade, 2 minutes of an unattended phone would become a map of betrayal. For now, the night held its small, golden promises, and the family kept its quiet, practiced smiles. Morning arrived as if nothing ominous had ever happened. Coffee steam, Aunt Patricia's jokes, the clacking of wooden blocks in a small war across the rug. Amanda moved through the day like a ghost with good intentions, helping lay out plates, fluffing pillows, answering cousins' questions about downtown. She traded stories with her father about an old fishing spot and felt her chest fill with the old slow love that family has, frayed but durable. But the weekend supplied small glitches, the kind that later become evidence. Marcus diverted Amanda's attention more than once. "Hey, can you pass me your phone? I'll take a picture." At the time, she barely blinked. The photo he took was of everyone on the dock, sun on their faces. Later, she would remember how he set his thumb against her screen to steady it, and how, while he fumbled to hand it back, he had watched her type a number into her banking app. The lemonade spill was a moment that later unspooled into a strategy. Jessica knocked a plastic cup into Amanda's lap during the noon picnic. An accident, she insisted with frantic energy. "I'm such a klutz." Amanda laughed and sprinted upstairs to change. The spare room smelled like lavender and old books. She left her phone on the dresser face up, the screen blind to everything but the clock. When she returned, the room had been slightly rearranged. A book moved, a hairpin on the pillow. She chalked it up to kids, to Rachel's toddler practicing ninja moves, to plenty of small hands exploring the house. Underneath the family rhythms, Amanda felt a slow, gnawing awareness. Hushed conversations in corners, two people sharing glances that meant more than laughter, Marcus's jokes that landed thin. When she caught Jessica off to the side, Jess sighed. "We're juggling a lot. You know how it is." She said it with a careful distance, eyes darting like someone rehearsing lines. That afternoon, Amanda logged in to check a bill and felt a thrill. Savings growing, a drop down toward the down payment, the little digital progress bar inching right. She'd imagined months of tape measures and paint chips. Later, she would replay the way Marcus asked about her bank. Casual, practical, how he'd said, "Multiple accounts make sense. If you ever need someone to show you how wiring works, I can help." He offered help like a fisherman offers bait, hands gentle, convincing. When the adults walked back from an impromptu swim, someone had rearranged Amanda's tote. A receipt lay half-hidden in a pocket. She found a thin confirmation email in her spam. A loan inquiry she didn't recognize but dismissed as spam. The weekend blurred into a montage. Marshmallows, the glow of a campfire, someone bringing out an old photo album. Amanda saved the images on her phone, captions written to the moment. Family, love, gratitude. She felt blessed, a little richer with belonging. On Sunday night, alone on the dock with just the lake's hush and a borrowed sweater, Amanda scrolled through messages and smiled at a text from her boss. "Congratulations again." She slid her thumb across a banking notification out of habit. Balance, solid, safe. She set the phone down. It pinged once with a family photo sent by her mother. She answered with a heart emoji and put the phone face up beside her. She didn't notice the way the porch light caught on the glass or how footsteps softened behind her. When she left Monday morning, the reunion felt complete. Hugs, promises of see you next July, the children's sticky hands, Jessica's tight, longer hug that seemed to leave something behind. Amanda drove away with a trunk full of leftovers and a heart full of comfortable things, unaware that the weekend had rearranged more than linens. A line had been crossed in small, confident moves, an access code glimpsed, a minute alone, a trust exploited. The quiet accumulation of those moments became the mortar for the crime that would later crack everything open. Monday's coffee tasted flat. Amanda tapped her screen to clear a calendar notification and opened the banking app the way one flips to an old, trusted page. She expected the familiar squeeze of progress, a balance that read like months of thrift and late nights at the office. Instead, numbers slid like a skein pulled tight and snapped. Her savings, gone. Her credit, maxed. The screen showed specific, merciless figures, transfers, wires, cash advances. The world in her chest went quiet, and then loud, then small, cold, impossible. Her hands moved like someone else's. She called the bank. A calm woman's voice asked routine verification, then dropped details she would replay like a chorus. Multiple transfers, wires to external accounts, activity during a weekend she was with family. They were made from your usual device, the representative said, and Amanda remembered the doc, the picture, Marcus's thumb steadying her screen. Panic didn't feel cinematic. It felt granular, fingerprints of reality. Her credit cards, once pristine, now full of cash advances, late fees, the number for the mortgage deposit reduced to ashes. She called home. Her mother's voice was sunny, unaware. They stayed an extra day, dear. She didn't press. She couldn't, not until she had proof. The drive back to the lake was 2 hours of revisionist memory. Everything unspooled into a new light. Marcus's questions about wiring, the thumb on her screen, the lemonade staged with the precise timing of a practiced distraction. She rehearsed what she would say, logical, calm, fact-based. She refused to let hysteria be her voice. When she stepped into the house again, the familiar would smelled sour, like betrayal hidden in cinnamon. The family meeting started with the normal form of dinner talk, but Amanda's voice cleaved through the hum. She pulled up the app, handed the device around like an accusation. The room became a barometer. Dad stiffened. Mom's hand found his arm. Cousins quieted. Jessica's face drained. Marcus's jaw cocooned. "We took your money," Jessica breathed. 2 words that severed decades. She explained, haltingly, the plan that had metastasized from desperation. Move funds, max cards, take loans, temporary bridge financing. Marcus had called it. Marcus tried a slow lobby. "We were drowning." He painted pictures of arrears, of lawyer bills, of a dream collapsed by bad timing. He swung the emotional pendulum expertly. Kids, shame, pleading eyes. For a moment the room tilted toward the easy mend. Parents eager to patch, to protect. Dad's first instinct was to preserve the family shape. Mom's to shield the grandchildren. The moral axis wavered. What broke the soft tide was Amanda's evidence. Not only numbers, but context. Screenshots of loan confirmations in her name, Marcus's social media posts showing a boat and vacations at odds with their claims. Rachel and Gerald chimed in with patterns. Small loans never repaid. Promises syndicated into new debts. Under scrutiny, Marcus's story crumbled. He lashed, then scoffed, then intimidated. "You don't want to tear us apart," he told Amanda, voice low and threatening. "You'll regret this." For a heartbeat, Amanda considered a different path. Her father's appeal lay like a hand at her shoulder. Think of the kids, the reputation, the family. The easiest course was to accept a repayment plan, slow, obscure, likely false, and keep the house, the tradition, the peace that had cushioned so many careless choices. That was the trade, her savings for a family still breathing. But the image of her future home, the condo with the narrow balcony she'd sketched in her mind, returned. It mattered not for ego but for the work she had done, the careful months of cutting back, the nights she'd chosen overtime over drinks. This, she realized, was not only about money. It was about who owned the right to define what family meant, blind loyalty or shared responsibility and consequences. She took a breath and said 2 things that rewrote everything. She had filed reports, and she had a lawyer. The room didn't know how to breathe. Marcus's face tightened. Jessica's shame flamed. Her parents' attempt at mitigation shifted into grief, and then, fracturing, into accountability. Amanda had chosen consequence over compromise, and the house that evening would never be the same. The next hours moved like a ticking clock in a room with its windows nailed shut. Amanda set to work methodically, screenshots, timestamps, bank emails arranged in neat folders, a map of transactions that made the theft look less like a rash decision and more like premeditation. She called her friend Stephanie, the attorney, and the word fraud landed with the gravity of a verdict. Stephanie instructed, file it, preserve devices, gather witnesses. She said it in a measured voice that translated Amanda's rawness into strategy. At the house, fissures widened. Conversations that had once hummed around the grill now felt surveilled. Marcus oscillated between bluster and subtraction, lashing at anyone who questioned him, then sulking when friends probed. Jessica's complicity took on sharper edges as she admitted to time distractions and handed the recording of a confession when Amanda quietly pressed for truth. Her voice broke, each sentence a chisel cutting back a veneer of innocence. Dad pulled Amanda aside. "We thought we were protecting her," he said with a small, cracked admission. His hands betrayed him, fingers rubbing his temples. "We kept lending because we loved them." Love, it turned out, had been an anesthetic. Enabling had a soft voice. "We'll help, just this once," and then the debt would snowball into demands. Mom's eyes filled with 1,000 tiny apologies that could not stitch a bank account back together. Outside, word trickled to other relatives. Gerald and Patricia's arrival introduced corroboration, a ledger of small loans, a string of unpaid IOUs written on 2-inch slips of paper. Marcus's facade unspooled. Evidence from phones and social feeds suggested abuse of trust far beyond Amanda's accounts. Funds borrowed from cousins, loans never repaid to neighbors, purchases that contradicted Marcus's claim of fiscal collapse. The house that had once been a repository of comfort became an evidence room. Amanda proposed terms, cold and precise. Return the funds within 24 hours, formalize repayment plans for others, and submit to financial counseling. It was less about vengeance and more about establishing a perimeter. Boundaries stood where enabling used to. Marcus scoffed. "You can't expect us to just conjure that money," he said, voice folding into threat. He tried to paint Amanda's move to the police as family betrayal dressed up as righteous fury. "You'll never forgive her," he warned the rest when she said she'd filed reports. His bravado met a harder surface than he expected. Detective Harrington arrived with a warrant, plain clothes that smelled of bureaucracy and consequence. He had a calm, bureaucratic gait. He read rights and asked for devices. The detective's presence reframed everything from a moral drama into criminal accountability. Marcus's arrogance dissolved into fear, hands twitching where once they had been steady, words tumbling. Then came the scene both inevitable and electric. Marcus tried to flee. An officer caught him before the back gate. The tableau, uniforms, the clink of handcuffs, Jessica's face collapsing into a mask of shame, was cinematic, but the aftermath felt quieter and sharper than spectacle. No triumphant music, just a hollowing silence as the family realized the consequence. A man they had protected against reality was about to be shepherded through its full force. As the squad car's lights dwindled up the drive, Amanda felt a hollow satisfaction tinged with grief. The moral architecture of the household had shifted. Some would rally around kids and attempt repair. Others would be left to reckon with loss. What remained for Amanda was not closure but the hard work of restitution and boundary, voyages that demanded paperwork and patience, and a steadier heart. The house sighed. The lake kept its indifferent mirror. The arrest had been the crescendo, but the true climax was quieter, deliberate, a slow, procedural unspooling of accountability that tested every relationship in the house. In the days that followed, Amanda stood with her attorney, watching detectives comb through accounts and seize devices. The evidence she had assembled, screenshots, loan confirmations, even the recorded admission, folded together into a narrative that the legal system could hold. At the first formal hearing, Marcus's bravado had evaporated into legal counsel and hollow excuses. The judge's questions were clinical, the prosecutor's voice cut through the family's thin defenses. Marcus pleaded, then denied, then faltered, an actor missing lines. He chose to accept a plea deal rather than face the public rigors of trial. For Marcus, a 5-year sentence appeared in exchange for sparing his family further spectacle. For Amanda, it looked like a partial, cold justice. The consequences were real, but the trauma had already moved through them like something that could not be entirely quantified. Jessica's path took a different arc. She avoided incarceration by cooperating, testifying against Marcus, participating in restitution plans, entering counseling, and offering public apologies. Her redemption was not a single cinematic moment, but the slow drip of small acts. A check slid across a table, a voicemail returned, a counseling intake form filled out. She moved back into her parents' home, the space she had once fled into now a claustrophobic vessel of repair. The children were safe, cared for, but their father's absence left a particular blankness at family gatherings. Amanda recovered some of her funds through forensic banking and negotiated credits, but not the whole amount. Marcus had dispersed much to gambling and immediate expenditures, money that vanished into bar tabs and offshore pockets. Still, 60% returned felt like a reprieve and, more importantly, proof that persistence and documentation mattered. Amanda's condo plans shifted, smaller, safer, but they were her steps forward. The hardest moment came not at a courthouse, but at a small coffee shop 3 months later. Jessica slid an envelope across the table, $5,000, a first installment. It was modest and humiliating and yet honest. They both sat in the brittle light and tried on a new way of being sister and ex-sister-in-law. Jessica spoke of control, of the pressure Marcus exerted, of shame that had silenced her earlier instincts. She did not ask for forgiveness. She asked for a chance to rebuild trust through traceable acts. Amanda listened. She wasn't immune to the sting. The memory of the stolen future lived behind her ribs. When she left the shop, she felt less furious and more exhausted, wiser in a way that felt like a bruise. She had wanted a clean cut, but life doesn't grant that neatness. Justice had been done in one register. Healing required another register entirely. At home, there were small changes. Parents who finally said no instead of "will help." Aunt Patricia stewarding honest conversations. Rachel watching Amanda with a newfound respect. They sold the lake house. The family truce dissolved into a series of boundaries. Reunions would no longer be a soft place for infinite rescue. They would be gatherings with lines drawn. That night Amanda sat on a different dock, the moon a thin coin on water. She did not feel triumphant. She felt calibrated. She had chosen consequence over the easier option of preserving illusions. That choice cost her dearly. Money, nights of sleep, a simpler life. But it unmoored others from a steady cycle of deception. As waves lapped, she let the cold air steady her breath and the residual ache settle into something like resolve. The climax had come and passed. The work remained, honest and slow. Time did not heal like promises. It moved like paperwork and therapy sessions and monthly checks that came with steady humility. Amanda's life took on new architectures, tightened passwords, a credit freeze, legal affidavits filed away in labeled folders. She bought a modest condo, a place that fit her new finances and her regained trust in herself. It was not the skyline she'd imagined, but it was hers, purchased on terms she controlled. Jessica changed more slowly. There is no theatrical redemption in real life, only hours of showing up. She took a job at a local bookstore, learning to earn in small, honest increments. There were days she failed, a missed payment, a tearful night of regret. But she sat in counseling, read books on boundaries, and learned how a hand that had once passed money behind a sister's back could now fold receipts and keep appointments. The children adapted around routines anchored by grandparents who had finally learned to prioritize accountability over appearances. Amanda and her parents navigated rough conversations. Dad owned his part in enabling. He described, in a quiet voice, the fearful paternal logic that had mistakenly equated rescue with love. Mom's guilt lingered like an old perfume. She worked, clumsily and then more thoughtfully, to rebuild trust. They sat with a therapist who told them that families survive not by saying nothing, but by learning how not to hide harm. That message, mundane and radical, became the new family creed. Forgiveness, Amanda learned, was not a single act, but a negotiated terrain. She did not offer Jessica a blank check for trust. Instead, she set markers, verified payments, mandated counseling, co-signed financial oversight for any shared family expense. These practical gestures became the scaffolding for future interactions. They were not warmth, they were repair work. 1 year after the lake house fell away, Amanda returned for a small dinner hosted at Aunt Patricia's. The crowd was smaller, conversation steadier, laughter sometimes hesitant and sometimes genuine. Over bread and lemonade, Jessica told a short story about a book she'd shelved and how small normalized work felt like a miracle after crisis. Amanda listened, noticing how her own responses had softened in ways that felt earned rather than automatic. She extended a hand to hold a child's sticky one and felt a quiet pride in the kind of sister she had become, principled, patient, and firm. Her social channels still buzzed with comments when she posted the story, messages from strangers who had been betrayed and from others who defended family-first approaches. She answered with the same simple line she'd been living. Love and accountability can coexist, but one doesn't replace the other. It drew reaction, debate, and a surprising number of people who thanked her for choosing consequence. At night, Amanda sometimes thought of Marcus, his threats, his lawsuits, the way he once smiled as if the world owed him loyalty. He served his sentence and then drifted into a quieter anonymity. Jessica's letters came with small checks and updates about therapy progress. They were clumsy atonements, but they were tangible. Standing on the balcony of her new place, she watched a city that had once felt distant. The condo's small windows caught light like tiny promise tokens. She thought of the lake's mirror surface and how easily it could hide a current beneath calm. She thought about trust as a thing that had to be built deliberately, laid brick by brick, with contracts and conversations, and, occasionally, legal filings. If you asked her which choice hurt less, walking away or letting things pass, she couldn't answer cleanly. Both had cost her something. But in the ledger of her life, there was one unequivocal entry. She had chosen herself. And in that choosing, she helped others, her sister, her parents, confront the truth they had skirted for years. It was neither a heroic ending nor a fairy tale. It was the honest one, imperfect, painful, and finally hers.